I'm Marty Qually. I'm a sitting county commissioner of 12 years, and I'm running for county commissioner again for my 4th term. You know what? I ran for the seat because I love where I live. I grew up here, raised a family here, worked in many different places here in the county and nearby, and it's just serving back to the community that you love. That's what public service is about. Although I think some of us may have forgotten that. That's why I got into it in the first place. Well, it's interesting because I look back at different campaigns and think about what I've run on and the issues that were really passionate for me, and some have changed. But economic development and balancing that with preservation has always been a part of my platform because it's the people who live here. If you can't work here, if you're driving everywhere, since taking office, I've learned half of our residents work outside the county. You build community by people living here and working here. So we really got to keep that focus. But it's partnerships. It's working with everybody to get the right mix of what we need in our community. So that's staying consistent for 12 years. But now we're talking about broadband. Now I've learned more about our criminal justice system and the jail. Quite frankly, 12 years ago, I had never run a jail. I had never been in jail. I have still not been in jail. But those are things you have to learn as you're in office. So now I'm learning where's the place for a commissioner to help in the criminal justice system. It's easy to say that right now my most important issue is broadband. But the truth is that's a specific issue. To me, it's a broader scope. What is important when I first started, all the way up to now, and hopefully forever, is we've got to elect elected officials that will work with each other, that are willing to put aside the fights and say, hey, we can disagree later. Here's what we agree on, let's get it done. We don't see that anymore. We used to see bipartisanship. Now I will say at the county level, you absolutely see that. At the municipal level, you absolutely see that. I know people who don't know what party their mayor is, but everyone knows the party of the president or a senator, and it's because sometimes our parties want to fight, but that's not our job. Our job is to figure out how to help the residents. So while today that may symbolize as broadband, it's an overall idea of, Jim, Randy, and I, we don't always agree, but we keep our fights inside as much as we can. When we have to disagree, we do. We're professional. We don't make it personal. But then, we do a good job of, hey, Randy, you're good at this. You take the lead there. Hey, Marty, you do this. Jim, and so sometimes people think we're all over the place. It's because we trust each other. And that's not something you hear from elected officials anymore. Well, it was interesting because looking back, it was one of the first things that I learned about coming into the board as a county commissioner. And within our first year, we had created a broadband task force to learn. We did not know what the problem was. We knew that high-speed internet was becoming more and more essential to so many phases of our life. Healthcare, education, work, just your general quality of life. And some of the games are really nice to play. But seriously, there's a lot it's really impacting us. And over COVID, we saw that in a huge way. So while people go, oh, this is just about kids playing games and watching movies, that's not the case. If you want to get quality health care, it's online now. If you want to work from home, you have to have that signal. So that's been a big push for mine because so many people in this county are unserved or underserved. I'm still going to go back to the idea that, you have a board of commissioners who has now served for 12 years. And yes, we have disagreed on things. But the comment I hear from so many people is, I like that you guys get along. Because in the past, that wasn't the case. And when you turn to the news, that isn't the case. That's not what you see, because we're all trying to win by just a little bit. And we learned early on, you have 3 county commissioners. If 2 of us agree and 1 disagrees, and that person who disagrees decides to fight the whole time, whatever project, whatever issue it was, it doesn't succeed as much as it should have. So it's just a matter of going, hey, when the direction is picked, you do the best you can for the people of Adams County. And that's the test. Was that decision good for the people of Adams County or not? And they'll let you know, but sometimes the mirror in your bathroom will let you know if you were thinking about you or them. So overall, I like that attitude and that feeling of county government right now. Specifically, what I'm most proud of is the creation of the Mercy House. Our first substance abuse recovery house in Adams County with the center. We had a little rocky start with the first vendor and getting through COVID. We have a new vendor in there, but the idea of so many people who donated and volunteered to make that happen showed a massive community support. Even you guys were there to help film the ribbon cutting, and it's still going. Just met the first new resident. He's got a job downtown. He loves the facility. He's really engaged. And it's the kind of person I'm like, I hope you succeed and I hope you stay here, because we need that. The part I like the most is I like building teams. My professional background after college was I worked in restaurants. I did a lot of work for the government after that, but when you work in a restaurant, you're juggling 85,000 things. You don't get to pick your team. They're brought in for you, but you have to work together, because if the customer gets upset, they don't care whose fault it is. It was the team's fault. So building a strong team is incredibly important for me. I mean, I think that's out at the county level, we're getting so much done, because we're realizing this organization has the same priority. Let's team up. Let's partner and get this done. The worst thing, I love that you said taxing, because taxes are one of the worst things. But honestly, the worst thing is politics. It's the politics generally from above us pushing down to us. It's how aggressive people are getting on social media who don't even know you. By the end of this interview, I'm going to give all your listeners my personal cell phone. And I do this all the time because I'm accessible. The only rules are, if you call me up and start cursing me out, not only will I hang up on you politely, I will take you off my list. That is so that we can have a discussion. We don't have to agree, but I want to hear from everybody. And then I can make a decision. The vision is definitely, we have a lot of areas where we need to move forward. We can't sit still. We have surrounding counties that they're doing their thing. They've established their identity and they're moving. People look at us and they're like, oh, we don't have any highway infrastructure. We need warehousing. No, we don't need warehousing. What we need jobs that pay enough so people can afford to live here and they can pay for their transportation. With half of our people leaving, that's why they're leaving, because they can't afford a job here. But everyone should be able to be close to where they work and love where they're working. Well, that means we've got to work on broadband. We've got to work on economic development that complements agriculture, tourism, and hopefully is sort of a third leg to that stool, so we have a more stabilized economy here. And I don't think it's about just attracting people here. A lot of people want to do that. They want to say, well, you're going to add broadband and people are going to move here. No, I'm thinking about the person who lives in Ortana, lives in York Springs, lives somewhere out in the country where they don't have good broadband, and they're driving to work, but they could be doing the exact same thing from their home. Maybe go to DC once or twice a week. Maybe go to Harrisburg, York, wherever you need to go, but your life is here. And we're not going to get that if our elected officials just sit back and say, someone else will take care of this. That's our job. That's why you elect us. I come from a pretty big family. There are 7 kids in my family altogether. We all grew up here for most of our lives. And that's where I sort of learned this. You've got to work together with other people. When you have 6 brothers and sisters, we're all a little bit different. We all don't get along all the time either. But I learned it growing up. If you want to make things happen, you've got to be in the group that's making things happen. Yes, you can stay on the outside and look in, and that gives you a great perspective. But there's a time where you've got to step in. To quote one of our old relatives, you got to step in and take some punches. And if you want to get stuff done, it isn't always fun, but I'll do it because that's what the community needs to me. I used to be considered the young elected official, and when I crossed 50 and put on a couple pounds, because the office does that too, you start reevaluating and seeing how, I no longer am as in touch with the younger folks as people thought, because I'm an old guy now. What I would say, and I say this to adults, I say this to kids all the time, there are 3 basic rules. This is the rules we gave to our kids. Find out who you are. That is the number one thing. Everyone's going to try to tell you who you are, but you need to find out who you are. Find out what you want to do. That is part of the purpose of schooling. That's life. You can accept advice from friends and family, but at the end of the day, you have to choose what you're going to do. And find the people you love. No one can tell you who to love. That's between you and an individual, or your friends, or your family. That's you. You do all those three things, no matter your age, you're going to be happy. And that's the point. So for me, my job is to set the environment of the community that everyone is welcome. We have the jobs for them to choose from. We have a place for them to live. And they get to meet the people they want to be with. That's what it's all about. Years ago, and when the United Way, I'm sorry, not the United Way, the Adams County Community Foundation, the previous director, they had money set aside. And that what they really wanted to do is they wanted to do a study. Let's find out what the real challenges are. Let's quantifiably determine the priorities in Adams County. And it was affordable wages, transportation, and housing. We're in a spot which is geographically challenging. If you want to work in Harrisburg, you can live here. You can live here for less. If you want to work in DC, if you want to work in Frederick, you can live here for less. So we're really seeing a lot of pressure on housing. Because if you're a builder, and I do not want to hold anything against them, if you're going to build a house for $100,000, you're going to make X amount of dollars. Well, for the same amount of work, you can make a $200,000 house, $300,000, $400,000. Now, you got to take care of your family too. But what we have to do is we have to prioritize workforce housing. And we've done that. We work with the Economic Development Corporation. It used to be, the paradigm was, if a company wants to come here, we're going to help them come here. Now it is, if somebody wants to come here, the first question they're going to get is your average pay above the living wage for Adams County? If it is not, thank you very much. You can look, but we're not going to put effort into helping you. We're not going to provide tax incentives. We only want to incentivize businesses that are going to help to promote that concept, that you can work and live here. I've commuted before, 45 minutes. It doesn't feel like a lot right away, but all of a sudden it's an hour and a half every day. That's away from your kids. You're missing practices. You're missing games. You don't want to do that. So we've got to find a way to keep all that right here, as well as improving our transportation system. While we feel rural, it really does help some people. When you hear that someone lost their job because they couldn't afford a $200 repair to their car, that is absurd. So we've got to improve our public transportation, and we've just got to make it so that we're lifting people up. We're not just adding people. I would love to make a plug for the Gettysburg-Hanover Connector. That's another thing that we worked on with the Community Foundation, which is a great bus service from Gettysburg to New Oxford and to Hanover. A lot of people are making that trip. And it's always a challenge because is the bus full? Not all the time, but people are using it. And the more you promote it, the more people use it, and they realize, hey, for less money, I can get a job in New Oxford versus in Gettysburg, perhaps. Depends on what your industry is. So it's helping out some of our employers, and it's helping our employees right now. So nonprofits are incredibly important for Adams County. It is amazing. One of the best examples that you hear about is with the Community Foundation and the Giving Spree. The idea that people in our community give more in Adams County than I believe almost any other county in the U.S. Lancaster is pretty significant, and there was one other city around the U.S., but comparing us to a major city, it just seems absurd. There are so many people here who financially support these organizations that are incredibly important because government can't do everything. The private sector can't do everything. The religious sector can't do everything. And so oftentimes you'll find these gaps, and that's where nonprofits fit in. I serve on the board of the Community Action Agency, and it's interesting. It's always, well, here's an issue we want to work on. What other nonprofit is out there that we can work with? Is Manos Unidos going to be coming into the mix? Are we going to work with the Community Foundation on this? And it's not just, are we going to give money to organizations? Take time to volunteer. Again, that's why it's also critical. The more people who live here, work here, and stay here, then you actually have time for that. There is not a civic organization that I go to an event or a nonprofit that I go to an event that isn't struggling to find membership, board members, volunteers, and donors. It's challenging because so many people are leaving. But we have this strong core. Let's keep it strong, and let's add to it. Oh no, I'm not going to do a campaign spiel for everybody. The idea is after 12 years, a lot of you know me. If you don't know me, check out my Facebook page, Google Marty Qually. It's not that hard to find information about me. Again, my phone number is 717-339-6514. I do encourage you to call me any question. You can email me with questions. That's often a great way because we can have a dialogue back and forth online. We can also talk in person. That's what works for government. You can't complain about government if you haven't actually said, here's my concern, let me talk to that elected official. And please, if you read something in the newspaper and you have a concern, call me. Media doesn't always get it right. But if you want to know the truth, I live in this community, I shop in this community, you'll find me. Just ask me the questions that you're concerned about. If we don't agree, that's okay. But hopefully I can get you to somebody who has the answer you're looking for, who can help you, if I can't. But the goal is we don't move forward by ignoring each other. We've got to communicate better.